Welcome back to another iDoctor UK video. In this video, I want to show you step-by-step instructions on how to replace the charging port or lightning connector on the iPhone 11. This phone's coming to us today because the bottom microphone's not working properly. Test. Other reasons that you might want to change the charging port are if it's not charging correctly. To carry out this repair, you'll need a few specialist tools, including a set of screwdrivers. You'll also need some isopropyl alcohol, some fine tweezers, a single-sided razor blade, and a couple of plastic prying tools. As for the part you'll need, for all models of iPhone after the iPhone 10, I recommend using a genuine pulled charging port. I'll link the part in the description below. Let's get started with the repair. Using the pentalobe screwdriver, remove the two proprietary screws from the bottom of the device. With those screws out of the way, take a single-sided razor blade and create a gap between the chassis of the phone and the plastic bezel on the front screen. Insert the edge of the blade a couple of millimeters and then pry upwards to create that small gap. Once you've got a gap big enough to fit the plastic opening pick in there, carefully insert it just a couple of millimeters and run it up the edge of the phone. Work your way around the right side, the bottom edge, and the left side of the phone. Once you've separated all the edges of the phone, lift up the screen from the bottom, give it a little wiggle to release it from the top, and open the phone like opening a book from the back cover. Take a heavy, sturdy object like a mug and place it behind the screen to stop the screen from falling over. Now that we're inside the phone, we need to release the three tri-wing screws underneath the flex cables for the screen. Remove those and use tweezers to remove the shield, and then use a plastic spudger to disconnect the battery flex. Next, take your tri-wing screwdriver again and remove the 5 screws holding down the main logic board shield. Take your tweezers and remove that shield and keep it safe for later, and then using the plastic prying tool, disconnect the flex for the top sensors and the screen flexes. We can now remove the screen out of the way and begin work removing the charging port. To access this, we'll have to remove a lot of screws and hardware from the phone, starting off by removing the SIM tray and the 3 crosshead screws holding down the SIM card reader. Remove the standoff screw in the bottom right of the logic board, then use a spudger to disconnect the flex cable for the charging port. You can now use tweezers to remove the small shield, then carefully peel back the charging port connector and use a spudger to disconnect the 3 flexes that are hiding underneath that shield. That will release the SIM card reader now. Just make sure that the small pin is inserted into the chassis and not sticking out, stopping you remove it. We'll now remove this aluminium shield, remove all the screws that are holding that down, and then use tweezers to lift it out. There's a couple of screws for the Taptic engine and loudspeaker hidden under a black sticker. Peel back the sticker using tweezers and remove the 2 screws. You can then remove the small shield that holds down the connector for the Taptic engine. Then release the 2 crosshead screws on the left edge of the Taptic engine. Disconnect the flex cable using your plastic spudger and then carefully lift out the Taptic engine with some tweezers. There's a standoff screw hidden under a flex cable in the bottom right corner. Remove that, then remove the small grounding pin. You can now remove the 2 standoff screws either side of the lightning connector, then pull out the loudspeaker from the chassis. There's a couple of sensors that are folded over into a plastic jig in the bottom left of the chassis. Carefully fold that back to reveal another standoff screw. Remove the screw, then remove the plastic jig with your tweezers. There's one more standoff screw just underneath where we took out the screws for the Taptic engine. Remove that and keep it safe for later. For the last 2 screws that are holding down the lightning connector, you'll have to tip the phone up onto the bottom edge and remove the 2 crosshead screws that hold the lightning connector to the chassis. Add a few drops of isopropyl alcohol around all the parts of the charging flex that are stuck down to the chassis and leave it a few minutes to soak in. After it's had a few minutes to soak in, use your tweezers to disconnect the microphones from the chassis. Then carefully peel back the flex cable to release it from the phone. Clean up any of that isopropyl alcohol that's left behind with a microfiber cloth And now we can begin the installation of our new charging port. Reinstallation is literally reversing the steps that we've just taken to remove the charging port, starting off with our new charging flex, making sure that the screw holes line up with the screw holes on the chassis. Reinstall the 2 crosshead screws at the bottom of the device. And then use tweezers to carefully line up the microphones into the spots that they stick in. Reinstall the Taptic engine now and connect the flex cable. Reinstall the standoff screw in the bottom left of the Taptic engine, followed by the 2 crosshead screws on the left-hand edge. You can now fold over the barometer sensor and install the crosshead screw that secures it down in the bottom. Reinstall the loudspeaker now, followed by the 2 standoff screws either side of the lightning connector. Resecure the standoff screw in the bottom right of the loudspeaker, then reinstall the shield that holds down the flex for the Taptic engine, as well as the 2 crosshead screws. Reattach the small black sticker, then reinstall the small aluminium shield and the 5 screws that hold it down. It's a little bit fiddly at this point to reconnect these flex cables. Start off with the small flex for the charging port, making sure that it's installed all the way, then resecure the SIM card reader, making sure that the grounding pin is reattached and secured, followed by the other 2 screws on the top of the SIM reader. Reconnect the flex for the SIM card reader to the motherboard now, and reinstall the funny shaped shield over them. Reconnect the lightning connector now, and that just about completes the installation of the charging port. All that we need to do now is install a new dust and moisture resistant seal. Reconnect the 2 flexes for the screen, as well as the 1 connector for the ear speaker. Then reconnect the battery. Reinstall the main logic board shield and secure down the 5 tri-wing screws. Followed by the small L-shaped connector for the battery connector, and resecure that down with 3 tri-wing screws. Peel back the final layer of this adhesive seal, then resecure the screen into place, installing the top part of the screen first, and then working your way down, applying pressure to the edges until it clicks into place. Reinstall the SIM tray now, and the 2 pentalobe screws in the bottom of the phone. All that we need to do now is test that the device works, so we'll use M360 to check that we've got loudspeaker and that the bottom microphone's working. It's also a good idea to check that the phone will charge and that headphones will work through the lightning connector. That just about completes this video today. Thank you for watching and see you next time.
Test.
Test.